He remained silent while they bound his hands with plastic restraints, destroyed his gear, and mocked him to his face. They assumed he was merely a quiet truck driver, but everything changed when State Patrol arrived and spoke his name in hushed tones. What was his true identity? And what prompted the FBI to begin investigating the following day? Kevin Rook Dawson tightened his grip on his truck's steering wheel, his hands hardened by years of military service and long-haul driving. Inside the cabin, only the engine's steady hum and occasional encrypted communication signals broke the quiet, transmissions that bounced off satellites and passed through secure government networks. His trailer bore no markings, finished in flat black paint, secured with a fingerprint-activated lock. There were no company symbols, no shipping documents, simply a driver, his vehicle, and an assignment. Over the previous 6 weeks, Kevin had operated from an isolated storage facility, hidden in Wyoming's remote flatlands. A location so secret it wasn't registered in any GPS database. Officially, it served as a military supply chain testing location. In truth, it functioned as a development site for self-governing inventory management systems and artificial intelligence-driven route planning software designed for military supply operations. Kevin's role extended beyond simply operating the vehicle. He was integrated into the system, observing how the emerging technology performed under authentic conditions. His instructions were clear: maintain a low profile. Ask nothing, deviate from nothing. However, the highway operates by its own rules. That particular morning, a weather system swept across the hills, pulling clouds of dirt over the roadway. Kevin maintained his course as he neared the aging Route 47 rest station. The flickering sign announced, "Open, all commercial vehicles must stop." He considered driving past, but regulations were regulations. He decelerated, his truck's brakes releasing air like a weary veteran exhaling after combat at the station. Travis Shaw, a heavily built DOT inspector wearing reflective sunglasses with his substantial belly contained by tactical trousers, observed Kevin's truck on the surveillance screen. No license plates, no company identification. This driver thinks he's some kind of vigilante. His colleague, Vince O'Donnell, was already putting on protective gloves. "Let's go have a conversation with him." Kevin lowered his window as they drew near. "Good morning, officers," he stated without emotion. "Show me your license, vehicle registration, and cargo manifest," Travis ordered, his voice dripping with mockery. Kevin presented a federal identification card. No photograph, no name listed, simply a Department of Defense clearance code. Travis squinted at it. "Is this some kind of prank?" "No, sir. You believe you can pull into my checkpoint with a mysterious cargo container on wheels? Present me with a cryptic credential and expect a salute." Vince walked around the vehicle, tapping the trailer's exterior panels. "He's transporting nothing. I have clearance for military supply operations," Kevin explained steadily. "I'm not permitted to reveal the contents." "Oh, we'll get into that all right," Travis responded sharply. "Open the trailer immediately." Kevin hesitated. "That's not possible." Incorrect response, and an instant. Travis seized Kevin's arm and jerked the door wide. "Exit the vehicle. Keep your hands visible." Kevin offered no resistance. Years of training had taught him that confrontation only empowers bullies. By this point, several nearby truckers had become interested. Mobile phones were lifted, recording devices activated. "Hey," one of them shouted. "That man served in the military. You can't handle him that way." Kevin was forced against his vehicle's side. Plastic restraints clicked around his wrists. His identification card fell to the pavement, crushed under Vince's footstep. Travis opened the cabin, searching through the front storage area. "What in the world is this?" he snarled, extracting a reinforced hard drive equipped with a fingerprint reader. When it refused to unlock, he threw it down the embankment. No documentation trail, no identification markers, just a mysterious device and an attitude. "Likely smuggling technology to China," he accused. Kevin remained silent, simply watching the dust as another hard drive tumbled into the undergrowth. "Good Lord," one trucker whispered, capturing the scene on video. "This isn't acceptable." Vince began ripping wires from the dashboard, smashing a compact control module against the door frame. Electrical sparks erupted. Smoke began rising. Travis moved close to Kevin's ear. "You want to act like a silent soldier? Here's the consequence for phantoms in this territory. Kevin flinched. Not from physical pain, but from the sound, the distinct crunch of electronic components breaking. That represented a $2 million sensor array, component of the new adaptive routing artificial intelligence system. And it was destroyed. Abruptly, a piercing siren cut through the atmosphere. A state patrol vehicle with black and white markings arrived. Emergency lights rotating. The door opened forcefully and Captain Norman Reese emerged. A trim, silver-haired man who moved as though he'd never departed basic training. "What's the situation here?" he demanded. "Standard inspection," Travis answered confidently. Driver refused cooperation. Suspected of smuggling. Reese's gaze fell on Kevin and his demeanor shifted immediately. "Release him right now." Travis laughed dismissively. "Sir, this individual is—" "I gave an order, release him." Vince paused uncertainly. "You cannot be serious." Reese advanced, reducing his volume. "That man is Kevin Dawson. Special Forces Delta Operative. 3 combat deployments. Most recent clearance level, Omega Black. Do you comprehend the significance of that, officer?" Travis's expression went blank. "You don't detain him. You contact someone." A tense quiet fell. One of the truckers, still recording, muttered quietly, "He's more than just a trucker." The restraints were removed. Kevin massaged his wrists, reddened and puffy. He still said nothing. Didn't need to. Reese addressed him. "Are you all right?" Kevin gave a slight nod. "I'll submit the incident report," Reese stated. "You should continue your route." Kevin climbed back into his cabin. As the engine roared to life, numerous phones remained focused on him. The recordings were already transferring, the narrative already circulating. And in some location, a woman named Agent Sophia Stone observed the initial clip emerge in a confidential FBI monitoring feed. She froze the recording, examining the image of Kevin's face captured in silence. "I recognize that expression," she murmured. "He's witnessed something significant." The wind changed direction as Captain Norman Reese remained motionless. One hand positioned on his holstered weapon, eyes fixed on the man kneeling in the dirt. For an instant, the sounds of the rest station, shouted commands, racing engines, static-filled radios, disappeared. All he perceived was Kevin Rook Dawson, wrists bound with zip ties, face bloodied from being forced against his own vehicle. Norman had encountered that face previously, years earlier in low-resolution monochrome satellite imagery from Kandahar. Then once more, in briefing documents so heavily redacted they resembled blacked-out poetry. Kevin had been a phantom even within the Army, Special Forces Delta certified, member of a covert operations unit so classified it wasn't formally documented in Pentagon databases. And now here he stood, restrained by the roadside like some rural vehicle thief. Norman acted without hesitation. He commanded the release, terminated the inspection, and placed a secure call to the governor's office, circumventing his own chain of command. Within several hours, the incident spread across the internet. The recording, initially posted by a trucker, was captioned, "Military veteran trucker degraded by corrupt DOT inspectors. Chooses not to retaliate." The footage struck a chord. Kevin's silence, the frigid professionalism visible in his eyes, the restraints, the hard drives hurled into a ravine. Millions viewed it, replayed it, slowed the playback, examining his expression. News networks covered it within hours. Commentators questioned, "Is this the treatment we give those who served?" The intense debate persisted for hours. However, while the internet erupted with indignation, FBI Special Agent Sophia Stone occupied a quiet office in Quantico, analyzing the unedited body camera footage. She wasn't influenced by sensational headlines or emotional reactions. She searched for patterns, and the patterns existed, unmistakable once you understood how to identify them. Military veteran drivers cited for trivial violations, elevated citations on unmarked vehicles, confidential accusations about mistreatment at inspection stations, all concealed beneath insufficient evidence. Sophia reclined in her chair, eyes narrowed. "This isn't merely harassment," she spoke aloud. "It's calculated. Someone's deliberately targeting military supply operations." She assembled a comparison between flagged veterans and inspection territories. One designation repeatedly surfaced. Lieutenant Carla Hurley, DOT Regional Administrator from Wyoming. An accomplished career professional with an immaculate record officially, but her designation appeared in every dismissed grievance, every redirected inquiry. Something felt wrong. Sophia requested Hurley's banking records, but they returned impeccably clean, so she investigated further. A contact in internal affairs provided her with a memorandum. Hurley had recently acquired a mountain estate through a shell corporation. No financing or liens, all currency. A $500,000 cabin on a lieutenant's income. Then Sophia examined the inspections Travis Shaw and Vince O'Donnell had conducted over the previous year. Pattern materialized. Aggressive inspections on unmarked or independent vehicles, particularly those transporting defense-related freight. In each instance, the drivers were held, violations documented, and equipment either damaged or missing. Yet nothing ever resulted from the grievances. Hurley had authorized every single one. Then Sophia discovered something that made her stomach sink. Electronic correspondence between Hurley and a private transportation company named Skyrest Freight Solutions, a growing rival in military transport contracting. The messages were encrypted, but inadequately. Skyrest had compensated Hurley to gain competitive advantage. They were meant to undermine the competition, especially the government's own technology trials. And that's when realization struck her. Kevin wasn't stopped accidentally. He had been specifically targeted. Someone within the DOT possessed knowledge about the classified trials. They had alerted Hurley, and she had dispatched her enforcers, Travis and Vince, to disrupt it. But for what reason? Why risk revealing a federal sabotage operation over a single truck? Sophia stared at her monitor. Then the designation made sense. Rook. It wasn't simply a call sign. It was a cautionary signal. In chess, the rook dominates the board. Powerful, silent, constantly observing from the periphery. You don't detect it until it attacks. Kevin Dawson wasn't merely a driver evaluating a system. He was the system, a human element in a field trial engineered to reveal weaknesses, both technological and human, and someone failed that evaluation dramatically. Sophia transmitted a secure communication to her supervisor. Subject is Kevin Dawson. Code designation Rook. This isn't simply DOT misconduct. Potential compromise of federal integrity operations. Recommend escalation and comprehensive surveillance on Hurley, Shaw, O'Donnell. Suspect bribery and sabotage of DoD testing initiatives. She pressed send. Outside, the nation persisted in debate. Talk programs, veterans organizations, news presenters analyzing every frame of the recording. But in a remote corner of the country, inside a DoD secure location in Utah, Kevin Dawson occupied a folding chair. Solitary. His wrists remained reddened from the restraints. He observed the footage of himself on a phone someone had given him. He didn't smile, didn't verbalize anything. He simply watched, and then, almost imperceptibly, shook his head in understanding. They had pursued him deliberately, and now they possessed his identity. The wind kicked up the arid Wyoming dust as Kevin Rook Dawson steered his truck into the gravel parking area of Eric's Diner, a weathered roadside establishment on Route 191. He hadn't intended to be here. He rarely intended anything these days. The incidents at the rest station had transformed him. Since that time, Kevin had disappeared again, vanished from media attention, rejected interview requests, declined military recognition. The public labeled him a hero. He disagreed. All he desired now was coffee, tranquility, a brief respite. Inside the establishment, a waitress in her 60s cleaned a counter while several truckers hunched over plates of bacon and eggs. The radio in the corner played a gentle Willie Nelson melody. Kevin selected the booth closest to the window, requested black coffee, and removed his hat. He had nearly begun to unwind until the door exploded open. Raymond Toller, early 40s, former Army, burst inside wearing desert camouflage and a frenzied expression in his eyes. His M4 pattern rifle wasn't military issued, but it was genuine and it was loaded. Customers shrieked. The waitress dropped a coffee pot that exploded against the floor tiles. "Everybody get down right now," Raymond bellowed. Kevin didn't budge. He assessed Raymond's posture. The involuntary twitch in his right eye, the rigidity in his jaw. The man wasn't here for robbery. He wasn't here for currency. He was coming apart. Raymond forced the limited customers and employees into a corner and secured the door. Nobody's departing until someone finally listens for once. Do you understand me? He yelled. They exploited us, discarded us, and nobody acknowledged a single thing. Kevin rose gradually, empty palms elevated. Release them. You don't want this course of action. Raymond directed the rifle toward him, eyes constricting. Who the hell are you? Kevin didn't respond with a designation. He responded with a gaze. Unwavering, composed, quiet. The kind that communicated, I comprehend what's consuming you internally. The waitress whimpered behind the counter. One of the truckers whispered a prayer. Raymond's hand shook. You were discharged, Kevin stated gently. Other than honorable. You've been attempting to get it overturned. Rejected for occasions. Raymond's eyes ignited. How do you know that? I've interpreted your expression, examined your record, witnessed myself. Kevin advanced forward inch by inch. You believe the discharge characterizes you? That the worst moment of your existence is the only thing they'll eternally remember. But it's not. I lost everything, Raymond shouted. They claimed I was unstable, that I broke down, but they didn't comprehend what they subjected us to out there. What they forced us to do. I do, Kevin stated. He sat gradually at a stool near the counter, never breaking visual contact. Raymond's hands began to tremble. The rifle's barrel lowered half an inch. You know what they communicated to me? Kevin continued, voice subdued and level. That silence was allegiance. That following commands was sufficient. But when I returned, nobody knew what to do with me either. So I commenced driving trucks. Not because I love the highway, because the highway didn't pose questions. Raymond blinked. I got targeted, harassed, thrown in the dirt like some felon. Same individuals I fought for. Same individuals who will disregard you the instant you squeeze that trigger. The words suspended in the atmosphere. You didn't come here to kill anyone, Kevin stated. You came here hoping someone would finally comprehend what you experienced. So here I am. I comprehend. Silence. The waitress sobbed gently into a napkin. Outside, a SWAT team assembled behind squad vehicles. Marksmen moved into positions. Raymond glanced at the window. He observed the red laser dots begin to materialize on his torso. They'll shoot me regardless. Not if I escort you out, Kevin stated. Raymond's breathing was irregular. I'm just a soldier. Kevin stood again. Then lower the rifle like one. Raymond's jaw tightened. Tears accumulated in his eyes, fury and grief colliding. Then gradually he released the rifle. It struck the tile with a dull metallic sound. Kevin stepped forward, placed a firm hand on his shoulder. They walked out together, hands visible, composed as stone. Dozens of smartphones captured the moment live. A man once degraded by the system was now guiding another soldier out of the darkness. The media didn't label him a phantom this time. They labeled him a savior. The Wyoming wind spiraled over the open plains like an aged memory. Sometimes gentle, sometimes cutting. Dust drifted in unhurried circles over the fractured asphalt as Kevin steered his truck down a narrow two-lane highway. In the passenger seat, his teenage nephew Eli leaned forward, eyes surveying the horizon with the inquisitive intensity of someone perceiving the world with fresh eyes. Feel that? Kevin stated, indicating toward the subtle shift in the truck's vibration. That's a crosswind arriving from the northwest. If you don't compensate for it, you'll begin drifting without awareness. Eli glanced at the side mirror. How do you know that without consulting a compass or something? Kevin half smiled, the creases around his eyes softening. The truck communicates. You just have to learn how to listen. They'd been on the highway since sunrise, navigating through vacant counties and forgotten municipalities, where corroded water towers still displayed the names of high school teams long disbanded. Kevin hadn't discussed much about what occurred that spring. He didn't need to. It resided in the silence, in the manner he conducted himself. More resilient now, but quieter. His wrists displayed faint white marks like phantoms of previous bindings. Not solely from plastic restraints at the rest station, but from years of having to remain quiet, to follow commands, to disappear when situations became complex. Eli didn't inquire about the scars, but he detected them. Back in D.C., the headlines had progressed. FBI agent Sophia Stone had received criticism for pursuing a federal agency, but she didn't waver. Her report had identified Lieutenant Carla Hurley directly along with 5 DOT officials across 3 states. A network of falsified inspections, concealed complaints, and discreet bribes, traced, documented, and revealed. Hurley had faced trial in Denver, entered a guilty plea to obstruction and conspiracy. She was presently serving a 6-year sentence in a medium-security facility. Her accomplices negotiated agreements, but the culture they constructed, the intimidation of independent drivers, the harassment of veterans, was dismantled systematically. DOT regional offices enacted mandatory transparency reforms. Body cameras were now mandatory for roadside inspections. Veteran advocacy groups established legal assistance lines for truckers with service backgrounds. Sophia never conducted interviews, but when questioned why she had pursued the case so personally, she provided only one sentence. He didn't elevate his voice, even when they destroyed everything he transported. That kind of restraint merits justice. Kevin hadn't communicated with her since. He didn't appreciate being the focal point of things. He didn't require revenge, and he didn't desire medals. All he wanted was the highway. They pulled off near a flat expanse scattered with sagebrush. Kevin silenced the engine, and the quietness that followed was almost sacred. "Take the wheel," he stated. Eli blinked. "Wait, you're serious?" Kevin nodded. "We're on private property. No regulation against learning." Eli scrambled over to the driver's seat, grasping the wheel as though it might fracture in his hands. Kevin adjusted the seat for him, gave him a simple instruction. "Don't battle the truck. Let it communicate to you." The engine rumbled back to life. Eli eased it forward, lurching once before discovering the correct pressure on the clutch. They moved gradually through the field. A tumbleweed bounced off the grill. In the mirror, dust rose behind them like a soft memory dissolving into the sky. Later that evening, parked near a bluff overlooking the canyon, Kevin stood beside the truck as Eli skipped rocks into the dusk. The sun descended low, burning orange behind jagged ridges. "You ever get angry?" Eli asked suddenly. "At what they did to you?" Kevin stared into the distance for a long beat. "I used to," he stated. "But I learned something." "What's that?" He turned to his nephew, his voice quiet but certain. "The road doesn't lie, only people do." Eli looked puzzled. "What does that mean?" Kevin placed a hand on the truck's fender. "The road tells you exactly what it is. A section of gravel here, a depression in the shoulder there. It doesn't pretend to be people. They wear uniforms, issue orders, shake your hand. But not all of them signify what they express. Some desire power. Others desire to be feared." He paused. "But there are good people, too. Ones who observe, ones who speak up, ones who drive straight even when the path's rough." Eli nodded gradually. "You one of the good ones?" he questioned. Kevin cracked a weary smile. "I'm attempting to be." That night, Eli slept in the sleeper cabin, curled under a wool blanket, the kind truckers passed down from generation to generation. Kevin remained awake for a while, staring out the side window, listening to coyotes call from a nearby ridge. His thoughts drifted to Raymond Toller. Last he heard, Raymond was in a VA facility receiving treatment. They'd exchanged a letter once, brief, honest. It ended with, "You didn't perceive a threat. You perceived a brother." I'll never forget that. Kevin folded that memory up like a map and tucked it away, deep inside. Then he turned back to the wheel. There was still road ahead, and the road didn't lie. This narrative reminds us that genuine strength isn't boisterous. It's silent, composed, and prepared when the world requires it most. What would you have done in Kevin's position? Would you have remained silent or retaliated? Comment below. And if this narrative touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to embrace the journey for more compelling narratives like this. See you in the next video.